The year was 2006, and I was playing Pokemon Sapphire for the very first time. I had just beaten the best champion in the entire series, and was at a bit of a loss as to what to do next. Mr. Briny, at the behest of Pico, had offered to take me to an exclusive island for elite trainers such as myself. But admittedly, I hadn't even explored a decent chunk of base Hoenn. You see, during my first trip across the game's eastern half, childhood me was getting rather distraught. The seemingly endless expanse was punishing my sanity, as was the proverbial wave of monotonous swimmers and tentacles. Now, I'm not saying that future IGN had a point or anything, but young me would certainly resonate with their critique in that regard, and I say this as someone who likes the Hoenn region as a whole. Anyway, Sutopolis all the way to Lily Cove was uncharted, so I decided to give it a look-see. I was slogging my way through Route 131 when a particular nook caught my attention. I traversed it, only to find a rather imposing thing awaiting me. I entered, saw that the terrain was far different than prior caves, and promptly booked it for Pacifidlog. Now well stocked under the assumption that this was going to be an issue, I was seldom prepared for what awaited me. The first level wasn't a problem, barely an inconvenience, but I couldn't say the same for what followed. I fell. Bewildered, I walked back up, and fell again. I tried another spot, and fell again. Slightly perplexed, I ran this time, and fell again. Possessing the mock bike and not the acro bike, in hindsight a very good decision, I hopped on and... Whoa, God! Okay, I figured out what I need to do here. What followed was some 30 minutes of intense fury. Gamer rage wasn't exactly a new sensation for me. The nightmare that was Victory Road with no flash sufficed in that regard. Before that, playing the entirety of Pokemon Stadium with only a novice understanding of strategy was painful in of itself. But this goddamn pillar. If the winding obstacles weren't enough of an issue, the high-level Pokemon here had a field day at battering my team. But by far the worst part of shooting up this dungeon was this goddamn it. Finally out on the other side after what felt like an eternity, I was rather peeved. To be greeted with what looked to be an industrial-sized pool noodle didn't exactly soothe my anguish. Nevertheless, assuming this to be a mighty foe, I saved and mentally prepared for the battle to follow. This was Rayquaza. Rather immediately, aside from that awe-inspiring cry, was the horrifying level 70 that this bad boy was packing. My squad had only just barely eked out a win against the Elite Four, and this was going to be a challenge. Nevertheless, I had adopted a similar tactic pioneered by a redhead, and was quite ready to replenish my losses if need be. Now, I want you to look at this particular moveset. What do you notice? What can you infer from such moves? If you guessed that this equates to the single most annoying legendary battle in franchise history, then congratulations. You get a lava cookie. Be it Outrage, Extreme Speed, or Fly, my team was getting lit up. To make matters worse, it had Rest, which proved to be a substantial annoyance in attempting to capture this thing. Even worse still, the confusion brought about by Outrage meant that this ozone snake was actively harming itself, and oh okay, it just self-KO'd. This rigmarole happened again and again, my Ultra Balls failing seemingly instantly. Sometimes I'd overplay my hand and accidentally smite it. Others I'd get it perfectly, only for it to shatter my heart. This creature was actively toying with me. I could sense it. This would not be an easy capture. Now, some of you may be wondering, where is my Master Ball? And some of you may assume that I used it on Kyogre. You would be wrong. For in first acquiring said ball, and reading that it could catch any Pokemon without fail, my mind instantly drifted to crime. I found the nearest trainer that I had yet to battle, and this happened. And, well, I hadn't saved in like 3 hours, so yeah. This is also the story of what happened to my first ever Master Ball. Back to the point though, this stratospheric green bean was quickly becoming the bane of my existence. Day 1 was a dud. The next day I had school, and stewed in my rage at my failure the entire time. Back at home, I resumed the commotion with determination. The first battle was still a mess, but the time I had to ruminate definitely kept my head in the game. I got closer, though to no avail. However, my second battle of day 2 was different. It lasted a long time. A very long time. Like 20 minutes. I ran out of Ultra Balls and was eating through my Great Ball Reserve when... No! Wait! Panicking, I forgoed strategy altogether and threw what I had left. To my utter disbelief, it was finally caught with a great ball of all things. I nearly fell to the ground in relief. The nightmare was over. Admittedly, my first time wielding Rayquaza wasn't all that special. I went through the Elite Four with it and had fun thrashing them, but the actual task of acquiring this monster in the first place was far more memorable than using it. It wouldn't be until 2 years later, when I got to play Emerald for the first time, that an even more transcendent experience was to be had. Aside from the sheer chaos of two evil teams running amok, the fact that two legendaries were now duking it out was blowing me away. To then be told by Wallace that I had to go back to that dreaded Sky Pillar actually had me rather intrigued. Was I actually going to fight both Groudon and Kyogre with Rayquaza? I couldn't wait. To my exasperation, this dude simply booked it instead. Upon returning to Sutopolis, I was beholden to a core childhood memory. An in-game cutscene with a divine tune. Was Rayquaza about to put the smackdown on these two rampaging toddlers? Nope. Instead, it descended from the sky, screamed at them, and then dipped. I did not know what to think. On one hand, this was a tad bit anticlimactic to childhood me, but looking back on it, the fact that all Rayquaza had to do here was yell, "Shut up!" and both of these primordial beings instantly fled, well, that was quite the power move. In the aftermath of this climax, a rather devious thought entered my mind. What if, and I'm just spitballing here, but what if I could go back to Spear Pillar and yoink that Jade Ouroboros? This time, I had the Acro Bike and did have to switch it out, SMH. Imagine my sheer stupefaction upon seeing that not only can you battle Rayquaza right after, but it's still level 70. This is, to my knowledge, the only time Game Freak has ever forgotten to adjust a third game's Legendaries level down to something a bit more balanced. This time, I had the Master Ball at the ready. Poor Juan, although possessing immaculate drip, was helpless against the cataclysm I sent flying his way. With this bad boy, I tore through Victory Road, smacked aside the Elite Four, and dunked on Wallace for daring to replace Steven. Needless to say, this second foray with Rayquaza was far more enjoyable than the first. In subsequent generations, though, I seldom interacted with this titular legendary. Save for the frankly awesome Rayquaza vs. Deoxys movie, I didn't see much of it elsewhere. The Embedded Tower event was completely unknown to me at this time, and aside from spawning it in Gen 5 via an action replay for the heck of it, I didn't really use it that much. That was until Generation 6. With the release of Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, I got to trek through Hoenn yet again. The whimsical 3D was a far cry from what I started with, but what stood out to me in particular was the, for the better, revamped characters and story, particularly the Delta episode. Wacky woohoo Dragon Lady aside, the new Sky Pillar and heavy lore drop was a welcome surprise. However, the clear standout was Big Green itself. Aside from the fact that bro ate a rock, how scientific, the mere concept of Mega Rayquaza was enough to give me pause. Primal Groudon was already a monster. How much worse could this thing be? As it turns out, incredibly. To jump forward a little bit, the fact that Smogon had to create an entire separate tier for this beast should tell you all that you need to know. I mean, it has absurd stats, doesn't need a Megastone to Mega Evolve, has Dragon Close Combat, and a nullified Ice weakness. This thing is peak Game Freak power scaling, I swear. So with that context in mind, why did they think it was a good idea to give us this nuclear bomb right before we face Zinnia? Like, wouldn't this part be more impactful if you had to prove yourself to Rayquaza in a battle with the Lore Keeper, instead of utterly demolishing said trainer? I digress. Further zaniness came in the form of you flying Rayquaza into space to missile a meteor, only for Deoxys to emerge and fight you in space. Oh my god. Incredibly disappointing lack of a battle frontier aside, this was a damn good remake. Outside of that, what more can I say? Its shiny is simply S tier, even the new anime knows it. It may not be my all-time favorite legendary, but respect where respect is due. This was the first time Pokemon had a proper trio master to the prior two box art legendaries, and well, they certainly knocked it out of the park in that regard. My next video is going to be a monster of a playthrough. If you like what you see, then consider subscribing, and I guarantee you won't want to miss it. Furthermore, I was recently held captive in an Albanian prison for 3 weeks. In this state, I was forced to do a voiceover for fellow YouTuber Matcha Musashi. If you want to hear more of my glorious voice, and/or are a practitioner of basic hygiene, then I implore you to give this video a look. Finally, some of you may have seen this video floating around. No, I didn't take the idea for this video from that one. This is merely the mother of all coincidences. That is all I have for you today. Thank you for your time.